Hello, intuitive Scorpio. As you move through August 12 and 13, 2026, there is a quieter kind of transformation asking for your attention. I hope you are doing well, and I'm glad you're here because this reading is less about telling you what must happen and more about helping you notice what is already shifting within you. Sometimes, the most important changes begin beneath the surface, where nobody else can see them. And perhaps you have been sensing that something familiar no longer fits the person you are becoming. As always, take what genuinely resonates with you and leave behind anything that does not. We are looking at the emotional currents surrounding love, money, health, family, work, and your personal growth. But the deeper thread running through all of them is transformation through conscious choice. Be especially mindful of jealousy, resentment, and the temptation to hold on to anger simply because it once helped you feel protected. Your emotional health becomes stronger when you stop giving old wounds permission to decide what happens next. The energy surrounding August 12 and 13 invites clarity, but not necessarily the kind that arrives all at once. With the Two of Swords and Five of Cups as symbolic reflections, you may find yourself looking at something you have postponed, questioned, or quietly carried for longer than you realized. There can be a strange tension between knowing that something has changed and still feeling attached to the version of it you once understood. Instead of forcing an answer, allow yourself to ask what is actually true now, because sometimes the first step toward clarity is admitting that the old answer no longer belongs to you. You may notice this especially around your career, relationships, or personal direction. Scorpio energy can sense subtle shifts, but sensing something deeply does not always mean acting immediately. Intuition, fear, and attachment can sometimes sound remarkably similar when emotions are running high. The invitation here is to pause long enough to tell them apart, because the decision that comes from inner clarity will feel very different from one made simply to escape uncertainty. You do not have to control every outcome in order to trust yourself through the process. The Knight of Wands and Temperance bring an interesting contrast to this energy. One speaks of movement and desire, while the other reminds you that not every impulse needs to become an immediate action. Let your instincts inform you without allowing them to rush you, and notice the small moments that seem to mirror something you have already been feeling, a conversation that stays with you, a dream that brings an old emotion to the surface, or an unexpected moment that makes you reconsider something you thought you'd already understood. These moments do not have to be treated as supernatural instructions. They can simply become mirrors that help you hear your own inner voice more clearly. Be careful, especially with the instinct to react when something touches an old wound. A frustrating interaction, an uncomfortable comment, or tension in the workplace can pull you back into patterns you thought you had outgrown. But you now have another choice available to you. Instead of immediately defending yourself, proving your point, withdrawing completely, or carrying the irritation for the rest of the day, you can pause and decide what deserves your energy. Gratitude can help here, not as a way of pretending everything is perfect, but as a way of remembering that one difficult moment does not have to become the atmosphere of your entire life. The Emperor and Page of Swords can be read here as a reminder of quiet authority and clear observation. Your strength does not need to announce itself, and you do not have to make everyone understand your choices before those choices become valid. There is a different kind of power in watching carefully, gathering what you need to know and then responding from a grounded place rather than from the need to protect your image. Simplify what you can, release the parts you cannot control, and notice how much energy becomes available when you stop trying to manage every possible reaction from the people around you. With the Moon and Four of Swords, the deeper work turns inward. Some of the doubts surrounding your ability to succeed, love deeply, or create the life you want may have less to do with your actual limitations and more to do with memories of what happened before. That does not mean fear should be dismissed or fought. It means you can listen to it without allowing it to become the author of your future. Sit with what it is trying to protect. Recognize where an old belief came from, and then begin separating the person you are now from the circumstances that once taught you to stay guarded. This is where the Scorpio archetype becomes especially meaningful. Transformation is not always about becoming harder, stronger, or more untouchable. Sometimes it is about realizing that you no longer need the same defenses that once helped you survive. You can remain discerning without becoming closed, compassionate without abandoning your boundaries, and deeply intuitive without assuming every feeling is a warning. The version of you emerging through this process does not need to prove its strength by controlling everything around it. It becomes stronger by knowing what deserves to be held, what deserves to be questioned, and what can finally be released. So carry this affirmation with you through August 12 and 13. Asterisk, I trust the person I am becoming, even when I cannot see the whole path yet. Write it down if it helps. Speak it aloud when doubt becomes loud, and let it remind you that growth does not always arrive with a dramatic announcement. Sometimes it feels more like deep water becoming still enough for you to see what has been there all along. And from that clearer place, you can begin choosing what belongs in the life you are creating now. As you listen inwardly around August 12 and 13, 2026, allow yourself to notice what becomes clearer when you stop feeding the noise around you. You are being reminded that kindness does not require you to abandon your boundaries, and compassion does not mean carrying everyone else's pain as your own. Some people act from wounds they've never learned how to face, but you do not have to enter their darkness simply because you can recognize it. Your strength can remain gentle and still be deeply rooted. Protecting your peace becomes part of your transformation. Instead of answering every provocation, explaining yourself to everyone, or allowing another person's bitterness to decide the mood of your day, you can step back and choose what deserves your attention. That choice changes something within you, because every time you refuse to return to an old emotional pattern, you create more room for something healthier to take root. The deeper message here is not that life will suddenly become effortless, but that you are becoming less willing to lose yourself inside situations that once consumed you. There is also a symbolic sense of renewal around this period. Rather than treating numbers or colors as guarantees of luck, you might use them as small reminders of the energy you want to carry with you. The number 8 can represent cycles, continuity, and the way life repeatedly reshapes itself, while deep burgundy can evoke warmth, grounded confidence, and the rich color of something that has survived beneath the surface. Let those symbols remind you that growth is often happening quietly, before anyone else can see it. A new chapter does not always arrive with noise. Sometimes it begins with a private decision to live differently. This same movement can reach into your relationships with family and close friends. You may feel more willing to soften an old distance, revisit a conversation with greater honesty, or simply appreciate the people who make your life feel emotionally safe. There can be moments of warmth and celebration, but the deeper gift is the return of genuine connection after periods when everyone may have been carrying their own concerns. Let yourself be present for those moments without trying to control how they unfold. And beneath all of this is the strongest transformation of the passage. You are beginning to understand what your past was trying to teach you without allowing it to become your identity. The Tower, viewed through Scorpio's lens, is not simply destruction followed by triumph. It can represent the moment you realize that a structure you once protected could no longer protect you. What broke apart may have revealed where you had been holding on out of fear, familiarity, or the need to feel safe. And now you are rebuilding from something more honest. You have survived difficult chapters, but you do not need to keep proving that you can survive them. The old defenses can soften. The old pain can lose its authority. What remains is a quieter kind of strength, one that does not need to announce itself, does not need everyone's approval, and does not need to win every battle. As you move forward, your path may become clearer precisely because you are no longer carrying everything that once stood between you and your own truth. Scorpio, the movement around you is becoming quieter but more purposeful, as though something beneath the surface has finally begun to shift in the direction you have been sensing for some time. The Empress arrives here not simply as a promise of abundance, but as an invitation to create a life that actually feels nourishing from the inside out. Her energy speaks of self-worth, creativity, pleasure, emotional security, and the ability to receive without constantly questioning whether you have earned the right to have good things. Around August 12 and 13, 26, you may find yourself reconsidering what abundance really means to you. and whether true security comes from possessing more or from finally feeling at home within your own life. This can also bring greater awareness around your relationship with money, family, property, or the place you call home. Rather than assuming an unexpected windfall must appear, consider where you are being encouraged to build something more sustainable, whether that means managing resources more carefully, recognizing the value of something you already possess, or allowing yourself to invest energy into what genuinely supports your future. The Empress reminds you that what is tended with patience can become stronger over time. You are not being asked to force growth. You are being asked to notice what deserves your care and what has quietly been asking for nourishment. There is a similar theme in love. The Two of Cups becomes less about a dramatic arrival and more about the recognition that a meaningful connection should feel reciprocal, emotionally honest, and safe enough for you to lower your defenses without abandoning your discernment. If you are opening yourself to someone, you may begin noticing the difference between chemistry that keeps you anxious and connection that allows your nervous system to soften. A relationship worth nurturing does not require you to constantly decode the other person, prove your value, or wonder where you stand. It allows two people to meet each other with enough honesty that trust can grow naturally, one small choice at a time. For some Scorpios, this may bring renewed attention to an existing relationship or a connection that has been developing quietly. There could be a conversation, a moment of honesty, or a realization that changes how you understand another person. But the deeper message is not that someone is destined to appear and sweep you away. It is that you are becoming more discerning about who receives access to your heart. If someone enters your life, let their consistency speak louder than promises, and let their actions show you whether they can meet you with the same emotional depth you are willing to offer. The Emperor then brings a different kind of strength into the picture. For you, authority does not need to look like standing on a throne or proving that you are the strongest person in the room. It can look like knowing what belongs to you, what does not, what you will discuss, and what you will quietly keep private. You may be entering a period where your professional identity becomes more defined, whether through increased responsibility, a new direction, a project you are building, or a clearer understanding of the kind of work you no longer want to tolerate. The important shift is that your confidence becomes less dependent on recognition from other people. What once felt uncertain may begin to feel more manageable because you have learned how to work with uncertainty rather than fight it. The Magician supports this idea of conscious agency. You already have abilities, experience, connections, knowledge, and resources that can be brought together in more intentional ways. Instead of waiting for circumstances to become perfect, look at what is genuinely within your hands and decide how you want to use it. Your power is not in commanding reality to obey you. It is in recognizing your available choices and using them with clarity. There is something important here about manifestation as well. Rather than treating it as a promise that the universe will instantly deliver whatever you request, think of it as the meeting point between intention and behavior. What you repeatedly give your attention to influences what you notice, what you choose, and what you are willing to build. So when you say, "I trust the person I am becoming," let that statement become something practical, a reason to protect your energy, make wiser choices, speak honestly, and stop returning to circumstances that repeatedly ask you to abandon yourself. When it comes to your health, this same principle asks you to treat your body with more patience and respect. You do not need to wait until exhaustion becomes impossible to ignore before you begin listening. Pay attention to your routines, your rest, your nutrition, your stress levels, and the quieter signals your body may have been giving you, while seeking appropriate professional medical guidance when something concerns you. Taking care of yourself is not a distraction from your ambitions. It is part of creating a life that your body and mind can actually inhabit with greater ease. Your health journey does not need to become another area where you demand perfection from yourself. Small, sustainable changes can matter more than dramatic promises that disappear after a few days. There is strength in learning what your body needs, allowing yourself to recover, and accepting that rest is not surrender. For someone who has learned to survive by staying alert and carrying more than necessary, discovering how to genuinely rest can become its own form of transformation. In your work life, Discernment becomes especially important around August 12 and 13. You may encounter someone whose behavior feels uncertain, competitive, suspicious, or simply difficult to read, and there may be conversations around you that are more complicated than they first appear. Rather than becoming absorbed in workplace tension or trying to uncover every hidden motive, stay close to what you actually know. Do your work well, communicate professionally, and resist the temptation to defend yourself against every rumor or misunderstanding before there is a real reason to do so. This is also a good moment to become more selective about what you reveal. You do not have to announce every plan while it is still taking shape, and you do not need to share every result simply to prove that you are progressing. If you are working toward recognition, a new responsibility, or another professional opportunity, use discretion about who truly needs to know. Privacy is not secrecy for the sake of control. Sometimes it is simply giving something important enough room to develop before inviting other people's opinions into it. If you are looking for work or considering a change in direction, let your natural ability to observe become an advantage rather than a source of hesitation. Look carefully at what skills are becoming more valuable, what areas genuinely interest you, and where additional training could strengthen your position. You may discover that progress does not require you to completely reinvent yourself. Sometimes it comes from taking what you already know and placing it somewhere that allows it to grow differently. And as you continue moving forward, you may begin to feel that familiar inner certainty returning. Not the certainty that everything is guaranteed, but the quieter knowledge that you are becoming much more intentional about where you place your energy. When it comes to finances, Scorpio, the energy around August 12 and 13, 2026, invites you to look at money through a different lens. After periods when resources may have felt restricted or uncertain, you may be entering a phase where recovery becomes easier to recognize. But the real shift is not simply about receiving more, it is about becoming more intentional with what you already have. Think of a river finding its way around stones that once blocked its path. The movement becomes steadier because you have learned where to place your energy, not because every obstacle suddenly disappears. There may be opportunities connected with past efforts, family matters, property, payments, or work you have already invested yourself in. But allow these possibilities to remain possibilities rather than expectations. Your greatest financial strength now is not the impulse to chase every opening. It is your ability to observe carefully, understand what something is truly worth, and make a decision that still feels wise after the excitement has passed. Avoid scattered spending or choices made simply to soothe an emotion, and instead direct your resources toward things that strengthen your sense of stability and give your future somewhere solid to grow. There is also a deeper question underneath your relationship with money. Are you building security because it genuinely supports the life you want, or because some part of you is still trying to prove that you will never experience the uncertainty you once knew? Scorpio can sometimes hold tightly to what creates a sense of control, especially after experiencing instability. But real security can become something quieter. It can mean knowing what matters to you, understanding your limits, making thoughtful choices, and trusting yourself enough to adjust when circumstances change. The same awareness becomes important in matters of the heart. Around August 12 and 13, be mindful of how quickly a sincere thought becomes a sharp comment, especially when something touches a sensitive place inside you. Honesty matters, but honesty becomes more powerful when it is carried with empathy and timing. You do not need to say everything the moment you feel. It's simply because you can see the truth of it. Before speaking, ask yourself whether you are trying to create understanding or simply release the tension you are carrying, because those two intentions can sound very different when they reach another person. You already possess a deep capacity to sense what people are feeling. But emotional intelligence also means knowing when not to interpret every silence, change of tone, or moment of distance. Give the people you love enough room to explain themselves instead of filling every unanswered space with your own assumptions. If you are in a relationship, this can become an opportunity to soften the defenses that were built during harder chapters without giving up the boundaries that keep you emotionally healthy. You can be open without becoming unprotected, and you can be compassionate without taking responsibility for another person's healing. If you are single or getting to know someone, resist the temptation to reshape yourself simply because you want the connection to work. Attraction can be powerful, but lasting compatibility asks a more important question. Can both people remain honest about who they are without constantly trying to edit one another? If someone repeatedly judges your personality, dismisses your boundaries, or makes you feel that being loved requires becoming a different version of yourself, pay attention to that discomfort. You do not have to turn every difference into a problem, but you also do not have to call incompatibility a challenge that you are responsible for fixing. A healthier connection feels less like walking through a room filled with hidden traps and more like finally being able to breathe normally. You should still have discernment, because trust is something that develops through consistency rather than words alone. But you do not need to remain permanently guarded to stay safe. The deeper relationship lesson here is that love should have room for individuality, honesty, disagreement, tenderness, and growth, without either person needing to disappear inside the other. Family energy can also begin to soften around this period. If there has been distance, tension, or something left unsaid, the healing may come through ordinary moments rather than a dramatic reconciliation. Sitting together longer than usual, sharing a meal, laughing about an old memory, or finally having a conversation that everyone had been quietly avoiding. There may be occasions worth celebrating or news that brings people closer, but the greater gift is the feeling that the emotional temperature inside the home is changing. What once felt tense can gradually become easier to enter. You may find yourself playing a meaningful role in that shift, simply by becoming more authentic in the way you communicate. The resilience you have developed through difficult experiences can teach the people around you something, not because you need to become the person who solves everyone's problems, but because they can see what it looks like to move through hardship without allowing it to harden your heart. Younger relatives or family members may naturally turn towards you for reassurance or perspective, and your influence can be strongest when you listen before trying to fix anything. The sense of abundance within your home may therefore have less to do with appearances and more to do with emotional safety. A secure home is not necessarily the most impressive one. It is the place where you can lower your shoulders, speak honestly, rest without explanation, and feel that you belong. As you continue releasing the habits that once kept you constantly prepared for disappointment, you may begin to notice a different kind of richness, taking root, one built from trust, shared memories, genuine support, and the quiet understanding that you no longer have to carry everything alone. Around August 12 and 13, 2026, your energy may feel unusually concentrated, Scorpio, but the important question is not simply how much energy you have, it is where you choose to place it. You may feel more mentally alert, emotionally engaged, and willing to learn, improve, organize, or finally give attention to something you have been postponing. That intensity can move through your home life, your finances, your work, your studies, or the relationships that matter most to you. The more consciously you direct it, the less likely you are to scatter yourself across things that do not truly deserve your attention. There is also a strong invitation to cultivate empathy, but in a way that remains healthy for you. You may find yourself especially sensitive to the moods, needs, and unspoken feelings of people you care about, and that awareness can become a beautiful form of connection when you use it without trying to carry everyone's emotional weight. You can listen, support, and offer thoughtful guidance without becoming responsible for another person's choices. Your sensitivity becomes most valuable when it helps you understand someone more clearly while still allowing them to walk their own path. At the same time, watch for the quieter form of ego that can appear when you become convinced that you already know what another person means, feels, or intends. Sometimes emotional intelligence can become over-interpretation when we stop asking questions and start filling in the missing pieces ourselves. You may understand people deeply, but you are still seeing them through your own experiences, and they are living through circumstances you cannot completely know. Before judging someone's reaction, remember that what feels obvious or reasonable to you may have an entirely different meaning from where they are standing. That awareness can become especially important in social situations. If you are invited somewhere around this period, you may feel more comfortable around people whose character you already know and whose presence allows you to relax rather than remain watchful. With unfamiliar people, give yourself permission to observe before deciding who they are. First impressions can be incomplete in both directions. You might misunderstand someone, or they might misunderstand you because of a single expression, comment, or awkward moment. You do not need to become suspicious of everyone new, but neither do you need to force intimacy before trust has had time to develop. For you, discernment does not have to mean closing the door. It can simply mean letting people reveal themselves gradually. There is a difference between protecting your energy and building walls around it, and this period can help you recognize that difference more clearly. The right people will not require you to perform a version of yourself that feels easier for them to accept. They will give the relationship enough space for familiarity and trust to grow naturally. If you are a student, the same principle of conscious adjustment applies. If you keep using the same approach and receiving the same disappointing result, the answer may not be to push yourself harder in exactly the same direction. Look at how you study, how you organize your time, what distracts you, what material you genuinely understand, and where you keep losing focus. Changing the method can sometimes accomplish more than simply increasing the number of hours you spend struggling. If examinations or important academic responsibilities are approaching, give yourself enough structure to take the work seriously, but do not turn discipline into punishment. Put unnecessary distractions farther away. Create periods of focused study, and give yourself a reason to care about what you are learning, rather than treating every assignment as something you simply have to survive. If you have struggled or failed before, let that information teach you something about the method, not about your worth or your ability to succeed. A different result usually begins with a different relationship to the work itself. There is also a subtle theme of initiative running through this part of your reading. You may notice circumstances becoming easier to understand once you begin participating in your own change, instead of waiting for clarity to arrive fully formed. You do not have to force every door open, but you do need to recognize which doors are worth approaching. Your instinct for depth can become an advantage when you combine it with practical action, because reflection becomes powerful when it eventually changes the way you choose, communicate, study, work, or relate to others. In terms of compatibility, the signs that may feel especially interesting for you around this period can be understood through the qualities they bring into the relationship, rather than through a promise that everything will automatically work. Cancer asteroid can offer emotional familiarity and a sense that you do not always have to explain the deeper layers of what you feel. This kiss can create a softer, more intuitive dynamic where imagination, compassion, and emotional understanding have room to move without everything needing to be analyzed immediately. And Capricorn can bring a steadier, more grounded quality, reminding you that trust is not only built through intense conversations, but also through consistency, reliability, and what someone continues to do when no one is watching. What matters most is not the label attached to another person's sign, but how the connection feels in real life. Around August 12 and 13, notice which relationships leave you feeling more settled in yourself and which ones leave you questioning your worth, over-explaining your intentions, or constantly trying to decode what the other person wants. The healthiest connections will not necessarily be the loudest or most dramatic ones. Sometimes they are the relationships where you can breathe more deeply, speak honestly, disagree without fear, and still feel that there is room for both people to remain fully themselves. And as your energy continues to unfold through this period, remember that growth does not always look like becoming more powerful. Sometimes it looks like becoming more selective with your attention, more patient with your interpretations, and more honest about what genuinely nourishes you. You are learning that not every feeling requires a reaction, not every person requires access, and not every obstacle requires a battle. The deeper your self-awareness becomes, the more naturally you can recognize where your energy belongs, and that recognition can quietly change the way you move through everything that follows.